All right, so how we name compounds depends on what the compound is. So our first type of compound, we're going to have ionic compounds with metals of fixed charge. So what I mean by fixed charge is that they only ever have one charge, so not transition metals. So for example, everything here in the first row will be +1. Sometimes hydrogen acts as a metal, sometimes it doesn't. Everything in row 2 will be +2. And then everything here in row 3, it's aluminum that's +3. And then the rest of them are generally +3, but not always. And then there's two more exemptions or exceptions. There's zinc. Zinc is almost always 2+, so we're going to say that it only has that charge. And silver. Silver has a charge of +1. So those are the metals that will always have a fixed charge. And the way that we name metals with a fixed charge is we go with the name of the cation, which in this case will be our metal. And then to that, we add the base name of the anion. Which is our nonmetal, because remember, ionic compounds are a metal plus a nonmetal. And then we add the suffix "ide." Right? So it goes the name of the cation, the name of the anion, and then "ide." So for example, NaCl would be sodium because that's the name of the metal. And then for the nonmetal, we would go chlor, and then we would change the ending to "ide," right? Sodium chloride. Another example, right? The metal here is calcium, so we just write calcium. And then the nonmetal is bromine, so we go bromide. Notice that we don't say that we have two bromines. That's just implied because everybody knows calcium has a +2 charge. Everybody knows that bromine has a -1 charge. So it's obviously going to be CaBr2. In terms of the namings, right? So F-, right, is fluoride. Cl- is chloride. I- is iodide. O2- is oxide. S2- is sulfide. And then N3- is nitride, right? Those are the most common. You can have other ides, but those are just the most common ones. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few compounds and try to figure out their name, or give them the name to figure out the structure. So we have MgF2, zinc nitride, KCl, Al2O3, and then aluminum sulfide, and then silver oxide. Cool. So we have our metal, right? So we're just going to write that name, magnesium. And then we have our non-metal, and then we switch the ending to "ide." So that would be fluoride. Over here, next up, we have zinc. So zinc is our metal, and remember, zinc is always 2+. And then we have our non-metal nitride, that's nitrogen. If you take a look at your periodic table, nitrogen will be N3-. So that's N3-. And so remember, the formula has to be overall charge balance. We can do our little trick of just switching the charges to the subscripts. So that would be Zn3 and 2. No, we just call that zinc nitride. We don't tell you in the name how many of each they have because we assume that you're knowledgeable and know this kind of stuff. All right, over here, we've got our metal, that's potassium. And then our non-metal, we switch that ending to "ide," so that would be chloride, potassium chloride. Here we have our metal, that's aluminum. Remember, aluminum is a fixed charge metal, so it's just going to say as aluminum. And then this oxygen just goes to oxide. Again, we don't tell you how much of each we have. We just assume you can figure it out on your own. All right, in this naming structure, we've got aluminum. We know that aluminum is always 3+. And then we've got sulfide. We know that sulfide is always S2-. If you take a look at your periodic table, find sulfur 2 spots away from the noble gases, S2-. And then we can do our little trick. where we just switch up the subscripts, and that is Al2S3, aluminum sulfide. And then finally over here, we've got silver. We know that silver is Ag plus, right? That's one of our exceptions. Silver is always +1, zinc is going to be +2. And then oxide, of course, we know is O2 minus. So to balance out those charges, we need 2 silvers for every 1 oxygen, and that's just silver oxide. So there's the naming convention for when you have ionic compounds with a metal that has a fixed charge.